Let me tell you a story about a man that has changed the course of modern history, a man that went from boy to general to first consul to emperor, a man named Napoleon Bonaparte. Napoleon Bonaparte, one of history's most renowned and influential figures, was born on August 15, 1769, in Ajaccio, Corsica, a French-occupied island in the Mediterranean Sea. He came from a relatively modest background, as his family belonged to the minor nobility of Italian heritage. Napoleon's early life was marked by hardship, including his father's death when he was only 15 years old. Despite these challenges, he showed extraordinary intelligence, ambition, and an early interest in military affairs. At the age of 9, Napoleon was sent to France to receive a military education at the Royal Military School in Brienne-le-Château. He quickly excelled in his studies, particularly in mathematics and strategy, but faced discrimination due to his Corsican origin and limited French language skills. Despite this, his determination to succeed was unwavering. In 1785, at the age of 16, Napoleon graduated and was commissioned as a second lieutenant in the French artillery. He returned to Corsica during a time of political unrest, and though he initially supported the Corsican independence movement, he eventually chose to side with the French revolutionaries in 1793. This decision would significantly impact the trajectory of his life. Napoleon's early military career during the French Revolution was marked by several notable successes. His leadership and tactical brilliance came to the forefront when, in 1796, he was appointed to lead the French army of Italy. He achieved a series of stunning victories against the powerful Austrian forces, earning him significant recognition and popularity. In 1798, Napoleon led a military campaign to Egypt, seeking to undermine British influence in the region and establish French dominance. Although the campaign initially seemed successful, it eventually turned into a defeat, and Napoleon was forced to abandon his troops and return to France. Back in France, political turmoil was reaching its peak, and in November 1799, Napoleon seized the opportunity and orchestrated a coup d'etat, dissolving the Directory and establishing the French consulate with himself as the first consul. In practice, he held dictatorial powers and centralized authority, effectively becoming the ruler of France. Napoleon's domestic policies were aimed at consolidating his power and stabilizing the nation. He introduced a new legal system called the Napoleonic Code, Code Napoleon, which is still considered one of his most enduring legacies. The code ensured legal equality, property rights, religious freedom, and the abolition of feudal privileges, setting the foundation for modern civil law systems. In 1804, Napoleon took a significant step further, declaring himself Emperor of the French, ending the era of the French Revolution. His coronation took place on December 2nd, 1804, at Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris, an event immortalized by the famous painting The Coronation of Napoleon by Jacques-Louis David. As emperor, Napoleon embarked on a series of military campaigns to expand French territory and influence across Europe. The Napoleonic Wars, as these campaigns came to be known, were characterized by both impressive victories and staggering defeats. Among his most notable victories were the Battle of Austerlitz in 1805, where he decisively defeated a combined Austrian and Russian force, and the Battle of Jena-Auerstedt in 1806, which led to the disintegration of the Prussian army. During this time, Napoleon also initiated significant administrative and social reforms across the territories under his control. He centralized governments, promoted education, encouraged scientific advancements, and implemented economic policies aimed at fostering prosperity. However, the Napoleonic Wars were costly, both in terms of human lives and resources. The prolonged conflict and the continental system, which was designed to economically weaken Britain through trade blockades, led to widespread suffering and resistance in the countries under French control. Napoleon's greatest military blunder came in 1812 when he invaded Russia with a massive army. Motivated by his desire to enforce the continental system, a blockade against British trade, and punish Russia for its refusal to comply with it, as well as to consolidate his control over Europe, Napoleon assembled a massive grand army of over 600,000 troops, consisting of soldiers from various European nations under his command. The invasion began on June 24, 1812, as the Grand Army crossed the Niemen River, which marked the border between the Duchy of Warsaw, a French ally, and Russia. Initially, the Russian army, led by Emperor Alexander I, adopted a strategy of avoiding direct confrontations and retreating further eastward, employing a scorched earth policy to deprive the invading forces of food and shelter. As the French army advanced deeper into Russia, they faced immense logistical challenges and harsh environmental conditions. The vast Russian territory and the lack of adequate supply lines strained the already overextended Grand Army. The soldiers suffered from hunger, disease, and exhaustion, further weakening their effectiveness. Despite a major victory at the Battle of Borodino on September 7, 1812, where the French forces managed to capture Moscow, the Russian capital, the campaign proved disastrous for Napoleon. The Russian strategy of luring the French deeper into their territory and then engaging them in limited battles put a tremendous strain on the invaders. To Napoleon's dismay, instead of capitulating, the Russian forces evacuated Moscow, setting the city on fire as they left. With the onset of winter and facing severe supply shortages, the French were forced to retreat westward, back towards their own borders. The retreat turned into a catastrophic ordeal for the Grand Army. The Russian winter was exceptionally harsh that year, and the retreating soldiers suffered terribly from frostbite and exposure. They were also continually harassed by the pursuing Russian forces and Cossacks, who used guerrilla tactics to attack and demoralize the enemy. By the time the remnants of the Grand Army crossed back over the Niemen River in December 1812, they had suffered heavy casualties, with estimates suggesting that only about 40,000 to 100,000 troops survived the campaign. The Russian winter, the scorched earth tactics, and the Russian strategy of attrition had dealt a crushing blow to Napoleon's military might. In 1814, the Sixth Coalition of European powers defeated Napoleon and forced him to abdicate. He was exiled to the island of Elba in the Mediterranean, where he lived under guard but still retained the title of emperor. However, he managed to escape from Elba in March 1815 and returned to France, regaining power in what is known as the 100 Days. His triumphant return was short-lived, as the Seventh Coalition swiftly assembled to oppose him. On June 18, 1815, the forces of the Seventh Coalition, led by the Duke of Wellington and Prussian Field Marshal Gebhard Leberecht von Blücher, defeated Napoleon's army at the Battle of Waterloo in present-day Belgium. This crushing defeat marked the end of Napoleon's rule. Exiled once more, this time to the remote island of St. Helena in the South Atlantic, Napoleon spent the remaining years of his life in confinement. During his exile, he wrote his memoirs and remained a subject of fascination for many, including authors and historians. Napoleon died on May 5, 1821, at the age of 51, on St. Helena, most likely from stomach cancer, though there have been various theories about the cause of his death. Napoleon's legacy is as complex as his life. He left an indelible mark on the world, particularly through his legal and administrative reforms, military tactics, and the spread of nationalism across Europe. The Napoleonic Code has endured long beyond his rule, influencing legal systems in numerous countries. However, his pursuit of power and territorial expansion came at a significant cost, leading to wars, devastation, and the loss of countless lives. Despite the controversies and debates surrounding his actions, Napoleon's impact on history is undeniable. His rise from a relatively obscure Corsican military officer to one of the most powerful and influential figures in world history has made him an enduring symbol of ambition, military prowess, and the complexities of human leadership.